Hello everyone, I wish you peace and happiness. Are you all healthy? Today, I will continue to tell you about the difficult, scarce and challenging days of my mother and me trying to make a living. The morning is fresh, with a thin layer of mist still lightly covering the countryside. Huyen is carrying Micah in her arms, walking slowly along the dirt path leading to the watermelon fields. On her shoulder is a bamboo basket, and Micah is obediently hugging her neck, with big round eyes gazing at the peaceful scenery around. On both sides of the road, lush green fields sway gently in the morning breeze, and the chirping of birds can be heard everywhere. Huyen smiles softly, walking and chatting with Micah, heading towards the watermelon fields with hope that a new day will begin smoothly. Arriving at the watermelon field, Huyen carried Micah and approached the landowner with a friendly smile. The landowner happily responded and then led the mother and daughter along the lush rows of watermelons. As they walked, she pointed out to Huyen how to recognize when the fruit is ripe for harvest. She explained that ripe watermelons have stems that start to wilt, tendrils near the stem that are dry, a shiny deep green rind with clear veins, and when tapped lightly, produce a deep sound. Huyen listened attentively, memorized each instruction, and then bent down to observe each watermelon carefully. After carefully observing according to the gardener and Appo's instructions, Huyen chose a ripe watermelon to try. She carefully cut the watermelon in half with her knife, revealing the bright red flesh, juicy and sweet. Huyen smiled as she cut the watermelon into small pieces, and happily invited the gardener and the people working around to enjoy. Then she gave Micah a large piece of watermelon, and she also took a piece for herself. The gardener, Huyen and Micah sat together on the edge of the field, eating the sweet, cool pieces of watermelon and chatting happily. The sound of laughter and conversation blended with the morning breeze, making the atmosphere in the watermelon field feel warm and close. After eating the watermelon, Huyen stood up, took the scissors, and cut the watermelon before walking along the rows. After carefully inspecting, she chose a fruit with a wilted stem, a dry curl near the stem, and a shiny firm skin. Huyen gently cut the watermelon and carried it to the garden owner to ask for her opinion. The owner smiled and nodded, praising Huyen for choosing a ripe and harvestable watermelon. Encouraged by the owner, Huyen happily returned to the field, carefully walking along each row, selecting carefully, and using scissors to cut each ripe, juicy watermelon. While Huyen was busy harvesting watermelons, Micah was allowed by her mother to sit and rest among the lush green rows. The girl sat on the soft ground, happily playing with small grains of sand and dry soil beside her. Micah used both hands to scoop the sand, occasionally looking up at her mother who was diligently picking watermelons, then smiling. Around her were round green watermelons nestled among long vine leaves, creating a peaceful scene in the morning field. Micah and Appo's clear laughter blended with the sound of the wind blowing through the watermelon field, making this place feel truly warm. In the morning on the road to the field, De carried a hoe on his shoulder, walking slowly past the familiar rice fields. As he passed by a nearby grass patch, he saw a group of people diligently cutting long bundles of grass to dry for mats. Seeing that more workers were needed, De stopped, put down his hoe by the roadside and approached. He politely greeted everyone and asked if they were hiring additional workers. De stood there waiting for a response, hoping to find extra work to earn more income, support his life and take care of Huyen and Appo's mother and child. On the watermelon field, Huyen continued her work. She moved slowly through each row of melons, gently pushing aside the lush green leaves to find the ripe ones. Every time she found a beautiful melon, Huyen carefully cut the stem and then held the round, heavy melon in her arms to bring it to the collection spot. Her hands worked swiftly amid the gentle morning sun. Each shiny green watermelon was neatly arranged in rows beside the bamboo basket. Although a bit tired, Huyen still smiled happily because today she had an extra opportunity to earn money, preparing to bring the fresh, delicious melons to the market to take care of Micah. After the landowner agreed to let him work as a laborer, De happily immediately started working. He set aside the hoe, took the sickle, and stepped onto the wide grass field. De bent his back, his strong hands skillfully cutting long green grass stalks with the sickle. He gathered each handful of grass, tying them into neat large bundles. Sweat gradually appeared on his forehead, but De still worked diligently without stopping. The long bundles of grass were arranged in rows beside him, ready to be taken home to dry for making mats. In the peaceful field, De and Apo's diligent laboring image made anyone who saw it feel his hard work and sincerity. After selecting and picking the watermelons, Huyen carried the harvested melons back to the gathering spot. She gently placed each one down, carefully checked them, and then packed them into a bamboo basket beside her. The round green watermelons were neatly arranged, gradually filling the basket. For the remaining watermelons, Huyen used large plastic bags to hold them, carefully placing each one inside to avoid damage. Her hands moved swiftly as she worked amidst the watermelon field, arranging and calculating the quantity so she could sell them at the market later. Seeing the baskets full of watermelons, Huyen smiled happily because today she had earned extra income to take care of Micah. I cut a large patch of grass, and he used both hands to gather each bundle and then pulled them to the gathering spot. He arranged the long grass bundles into neat rows for easier bundling and transportation. After finishing, De sat down beside the pile of grass, carefully removing any remaining flower parts and stray leaves. His hands worked meticulously, removing unnecessary parts to ensure the bundles would have better quality after drying. After harvesting the watermelon she needed to buy, Huyen took out the money to pay the landowner. She politely thanked her and then returned to the pile of watermelons that had been gathered. Huyen carefully placed each bundle of watermelons on top of the bamboo basket, arranged them to be balanced, and then tied them tightly so they wouldn't oppose fall during transport. She bent down, lifted the basket onto her shoulder, and adjusted the strap to be secure. The bamboo basket was full of watermelons and heavy, but Huyen still tried to walk steadily. She held Micah and Apo's small hand, leading her away from the watermelon field. Mother and daughter slowly walked along the dirt road toward the familiar market area to start a new day of selling. In the field, De is still diligently working with everyone. After cutting the grass, he sits down beside the grass processing machine. The woman facing him continuously hands over bundles of gathered grass to him. De carefully pulls each bundle of grass through the machine with his hands, coordinating smoothly with those around him. The work is hard, requiring long hours under the sun in the field, but he remains patient, doing it little by little. The steady sound of the machine blends with the chatter of the workers, creating a lively scene in the countryside. Huyen held Micah and Apo's hand and walked slowly. The bamboo basket and the bunches of melons were heavy, making her steps a bit slower, but her face still showed effort. When they reached a wide sidewalk, Huyen stopped to rest for a moment. She gently placed the bamboo basket on the ground, took the bunches of melons off her shoulders, and spread out a clean cloth beside her. Huyen carefully took out each watermelon, arranging them neatly in rows to prepare for sale. The round green watermelons stood out against the cloth, looking very fresh and delicious. Micah stood beside her watching her mother work, her eyes focused on every movement. Huyen arranged the watermelons while smiling gently, preparing for a street-side sale amid the busy crowd. Just finished arranging the watermelons into neat rows, Huyen was brushing off her hands when a man passing by stopped in front of the stall. He looked at the shiny green watermelons arranged on the table and asked Huyen the price. Huyen happily stood up and gently introduced the watermelons, which had just been harvested from the field this morning. The man picked up one to examine, tapped lightly on the shell, and nodded in approval, praising the watermelons as fresh and delicious. After choosing a satisfactory one, he paid Huyen. She accepted the money with a smile and thanked him, carefully placing the watermelon into a bag for the customer. Micah stood beside her watching her mother sell, her small face also happy as she saw the first watermelons being sold. After the first customer left, other customers took turns stopping in front of Huyen and Apo's watermelon stall. Some passed by the market, saw the fresh and delicious watermelons and stopped to buy. Others, hearing Huyen and Apo's inviting call, became curious and came to see. Huyen always greeted warmly, gently selecting the best watermelons and handing them to each customer. She carefully considered each one, placing them carefully into bags for customers to take home. Soon the watermelons in the bamboo basket and on the mat gradually decreased. Seeing the increasing amount of money earned, Huyen smiled happily, feeling relieved that the effort from early morning by her and her mother had paid off. After a morning of following her mother from the watermelon field to the market, Micah gradually felt tired. When the customers had thinned out, the girl gently leaned on Huyen, her small eyes beginning to close as she fell asleep in her mother and Apo's arms. Huyen sat on the sidewalk, one arm holding Micah close to her, the other carefully arranging the remaining watermelons. She looked at her peaceful daughter and Apo's face, softly smiling with tenderness. Amidst the passing crowd, the sounds of vehicles, and the chatter of the market, Micah slept soundly in her warm embrace. That moment made Huyen forget some of the hardships, filling her heart with love and motivation to continue striving for her child. In the field, Da is still diligently working. He bends down, using his hands to gather the remaining scattered grass on the ground, then carries each handful to the gathering spot. The grass bundles are neatly arranged, preparing for the next step of tying them into large bundles. After collecting enough, Da sits down and tightly binds the long grass with a rope. He carefully arranges each bundle neatly and stands them upright in rows beside him. Sweat beads on his face, but Da continues to work persistently, his hands never stopping amidst the vast field. The new customers continued to come one after another to Huyen and Apo's watermelon stall. She cheerfully greeted them, carefully selecting the best melons to give to each person. Soon the pile of watermelons on the mat diminished, leaving only 2 final watermelons. At this moment, Micah was exhausted after a morning of walking around with her mother. The girl gently leaned against Huyen and Apo's back, her eyes half closed from sleepiness. Huyen turned to look at her, smiled softly, and gently patted Micah and Apo's head, feeling affectionate for her daughter who had been working hard with her mother all morning. Seeing that it was already noon, Huyen decided to pack up. She folded the mat, gathered the remaining items, placed the bamboo basket on her shoulder, and took Micah and Apo's hand to leave the stall. Mother and daughter slowly walked along the road back home, feeling happy because they had sold almost all the watermelons they brought today. After a long journey home, Huyen and Micah finally arrived at their familiar small house. Their legs were tired after a whole morning selling melons, but seeing the beloved house in front of them made Huyen feel more at ease. As soon as she stepped inside, Huyen placed the bamboo basket down and gently opened the window to let the sunlight flood into the room. The midday rays shone through the window frame, making the small house brighter and warmer. The indoor air also became more refreshing after a morning of being sealed shut. Micah sat down on the bamboo bed, rubbing her sleepy eyes after the long trip. Huyen looked at her child and smiled gently, taking the opportunity to tidy up the belongings and prepare for the next tasks of the day. Huyen went into the kitchen to organize the items. She took the bag of potatoes she bought and placed the remaining watermelons into a basket. Her hands carefully lifted each watermelon, arranging them neatly for the meal later with her mother and child. Micah sat beside her, watching her mother work, her face still showing a bit of tiredness. She took a small bowl, filled it with clean water, and placed it in front of the dog. Pippi happily bent down to drink each sip, her tail gently wagging when she saw Huyen return. After finishing, Huyen went back to the kitchen to prepare food. She sat down by the stove, took some dry wood, and lit a fire. The sticks began to burn, and the small warm flames illuminated the familiar corner of the kitchen. But just as she bent down to blow out the fire, a sudden cough overtook her. Huyen quickly covered her mouth with her hand, her body trembling slightly from the prolonged cough. She tried to catch her breath and then looked toward Micah sitting inside the house, reminding herself to try her best to take care of her child. After the coughing fit subsided, Huyen regained her composure and saw the watermelon still placed in the basket. She picked up the watermelon, used a small knife to cut it open. The blade sliced through the green rind, revealing the bright red, juicy flesh inside. Huyen cut the watermelon into bite-sized pieces and gently brought them to the bed, where Micah was sitting and resting. She placed the plate of watermelon next to her and smiled, offering Micah a large piece. Mother and daughter sat together on the bed, eating the sweet, cool watermelon pieces and chatting. Micah happily ate, while Huyen looked at her daughter with a happy smile. After a tiring morning, the peaceful moment with her child made Huyen feel as if all her fatigue had eased. Huyen stood up and went to the kitchen. She approached the water jar placed in front of the porch, gently scooping clear water into a small basin. Huyen took out the bag of potatoes, sat down beside it, and carefully scrubbed each one. Her hands meticulously cleaned the remaining dirt on the potato skins, washing them repeatedly until the potatoes were clean. Once finished, Huyen placed each potato into a small pot, added water and carried it to the stove. She rekindled the fire and put the potato pot on the stove. Huyen and Micah stepped out into the small garden behind the house. The gentle afternoon sunlight shone down on the familiar rows of plants, where tiny wildflowers were blooming. Huyen bent down, carefully selecting the most beautiful flowers, then used scissors to cut each stem. She handed the freshly picked flowers to Micah to hold. The girl happily hugged the flowers in her hands and followed her mother through the peaceful garden. After a while, mother and daughter gathered a small, lovely bouquet of wildflowers. Huyen held the bouquet in her hands, lifting it up to admire. The simple, inexpensive flowers made her smile brightly. Today was Huyen's birthday. Although life still had many hardships, and their small house was still lacking many things, she had Micah by her side, a familiar garden, and these simple things. Huyen embraced the bouquet, feeling a gentle happiness on her special day. Huyen and her mother together went back into the house. Huyen gently placed the bunch of wildflowers she just picked on the small bamboo table in the middle of the house. The simple flowers in her mother and Appo's hands seemed to carry the breath of the garden and the joy of the birthday. Then, Huyen carried the small bamboo table outside to the front of the house, placing it on an empty patch of land in the garden to prepare the meal. She went back to the kitchen to continue cooking, the crackling of firewood echoing in the familiar kitchen. While her mother was busy, Micah stood beside the bamboo table. She looked at the bouquet of flowers and had the idea to arrange flowers herself as a gift for her mother. Micah took an old plastic bottle, carefully poured water inside, and gently placed each wildflower into the bottle. Her small, clumsy hands, full of love, carefully adjusted each stem to be neat. On the simple bamboo table, the birthday bouquet prepared by her daughter became a small but warm gift for Huyen. The boiled potatoes in the pot are soft and tender. Huyen gently lifts them out and places them on a small table in the kitchen. She takes each potato out, carefully peeling off the outer skin to reveal the soft yellow interior. Huyen puts the peeled potatoes into a bowl, mashing them gradually with a spoon until they are very smooth. Then she adds a little flour, some water and stirs well. The mixture gradually becomes thick and smooth, slightly sticky in the bowl. After preparing the potato batter, Huyen places a pan on the stove and adds a little cooking oil. She sits by the stove, patiently waiting for the oil to heat up before gently scooping spoonfuls of batter into the pan. Small round pieces of potato cake begin to form, floating in the hot oil. Huyen skillfully uses chopsticks to adjust the shape of the cakes, ensuring each side turns golden brown. The aroma of potatoes combined with the scent of frying batter fills the small kitchen. Micah stands beside, watching the cakes frying in the pan, her eyes bright with excitement. By late afternoon, the final tasks in the meadow were completed. I packed up my tools, wiped the sweat from my forehead, and took a moment to rest. The landowner smiled and approached, handing me the wages he had prepared in advance. I politely accepted the money, bowing my head to thank him for giving me a day of work. After a few greetings, he left the field, walking slowly along the rural road, carrying the wages I had just earned to go home. I stopped at the edge of the field, reached into my pocket to take out the stack of wages I had just received. I carefully counted each bill again, feeling reassured that the amount was correct. After counting, I folded the money neatly and put it back into my pocket, then patted it lightly to make sure it wouldn't fall out. Then I turned and left the meadow, walking quickly along the familiar dirt road, heading straight toward my mother Huyen's small house. Huyen gently carries a watermelon and places it on the bamboo table in front of the house porch. She holds a sharp knife, skillfully cuts the watermelon in half, then selects the half with bright red flesh. With meticulous hands, Huyen carefully carves each line, shaping half of the watermelon into a beautiful round birthday cake. She also skillfully cuts soft decorative borders around the cake and oppose edge, making it look very attractive. In just a moment, the juicy red watermelon birthday cake appears before Micah and Appo's eyes. The girl opens her wide eyes, delightedly looks at the special cake then smiles brightly, clapping her hands in surprise at her mother and Appo's dexterity. Huyen went back to the kitchen, gently picking up each golden fried sweet potato cake and placing them on a plate. The aroma of the hot cakes spread throughout the small house. Meanwhile, Micah ran to the garden to pick a few small, colorful flowers and carefully brought them inside. The girl gently placed each flower on the watermelon birthday cake that Huyen had carefully shaped and decorated around the edges. Soon, the watermelon birthday cake became more vibrant and adorable, making both mother and daughter smile happily as they admired their creation. Huyen gently carries a plate of crispy golden pancakes and places it on the bamboo table, next to a birthday cake made from half a watermelon and a wildflower vase freshly picked from the garden. Mother and daughter look at each other with smiles and then sing happy birthday together in the small house. Although the table only has a plate of pancakes, a watermelon birthday cake, and a rustic wildflower vase, the laughter of the mother and daughter is lively and warm. Micah claps along to the rhythm of the song, while Huyen looks at her daughter with a heart full of love. For Huyen, happiness does not lie in expensive gifts or fancy parties, but simply being with Micah, celebrating a modest birthday filled with love, is already the most precious thing in her life. Appo's figure appeared in the front yard. He had just arrived and stopped in his tracks when he heard cheerful laughter and chatter coming from the small house. He stood behind the trees, quietly observing for a moment. He saw on the bamboo table a plate of fragrant golden donuts, a special birthday cake made from watermelon, and a small wildflower vase. Huyen and Micah were happily singing the birthday song. Seeing the happy smiles of mother and daughter, Huyen and Appo's helped but smile. He looked at the simple watermelon cake on the table and thought to himself, today must be Huyen and Appo's birthday, He stood still for a moment, feeling compassion for Huyen and her mother because on such a special day, only simple things like these were present. Then he suddenly turned around and hurriedly left the yard. He quickly walked out onto the village road, running toward the town. He wanted to buy a beautiful birthday cake quickly to bring back and give to Huyen, hoping she would have an extra gift on her special day. He ran quickly to the town area, stopping in front of a small birthday cake shop by the roadside. He paused in front of the glass display, looking at the colorful cakes inside. He stood admiring for a moment, his eyes settling on a simple yet attractive cake, suitable for Huyen and Micah. He entered the shop, called the owner, and pointed to the cake he had chosen, give me this one, The owner carefully took out the cake, beautifully packaged it, and handed it to Da. He took the money from his pocket, paid the owner, and received the cake with both hands, holding it delicately like a precious gift. Without delay, De hurriedly left the shop, clutching the birthday cake and running quickly along the countryside road back to Huyen and Apo's house. In his heart, he only hoped to be able to deliver this small gift to Huyen and Micah on this special day. In the garden along the road leading to Huyen and Apo's house, De and Apo's silhouette appeared faintly. He walked very quietly, still carefully holding the birthday cake he just bought. When he reached the small house, De didn't and Apo's rushed to enter but stood by the side silently watching inside. Through the kitchen door he saw Huyen holding Micah in her arms. The mother and daughter were still happily chatting, their warm laughter echoing in the small kitchen. De and Apo's gaze softened as he watched this scene. He smiled when he saw Huyen and Micah having a simple but loving birthday. De looked down at the birthday cake in his hand, then back at Huyen and Micah. He stood still for a moment, his heart wishing to bring Huyen a surprise of joy on this special day. Huyen carried Micah in the small kitchen, her gaze resting on a wildflower vase placed beside the bamboo table. The simple flowers cut from the garden made her smile brightly. For Huyen, being with her child, seeing Micah happy on this special day, was a great happiness. A moment later, Huyen gently carried Micah outside to the garden. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees, and a gentle breeze caused the flowers in front of the house to sway softly. Mother and daughter walked along the narrow path in the garden, heading toward the cornfield behind the house. Upon reaching, Huyen stood in front of the lush green corn plants, touching each ear of corn growing there. She carefully examined the husks, looked at the corn silk that had changed color, and smiled. Huyen checked each plant, pondering whether it was time to harvest the corn to prepare for a new crop. Micah lay in her mother and Apo's arms, curious, looking at the taller-than-her corn rows. The girl happily pointed at the large ears of corn, while Huyen, carrying her, admired the fruits of her hard work after days of diligent care. Seeing Huyen carrying Micah out of the house, De was slightly startled. He watched the mother and daughter happily walking towards the cornfield, then quickly turned around and quietly stepped behind the house. De held the birthday cake in his hand, hiding behind the trees, not wanting Huyen to see him at this moment. He thought that today was a special day for Huyen and Micah, and she had a joyful moment with her child after many days of hardship. He didn't and Apo's want to suddenly appear and interrupt that peaceful moment. De stood behind the house, silently watching the figures of mother and daughter gradually disappear towards the cornfield. A gentle breeze blew through the garden, and the cake in his hand was still carefully kept. Seeing Huyen and her mother walking further into the cornfield, De gently stepped out of his hiding spot. He quickly returned to the small house, carefully placing the birthday cake on the bamboo table in front of the porch. De looked at the cake for a moment, then took out a small piece of white paper from his pocket. He wanted to leave a few birthday wishes for Huyen, but after struggling for a while he still couldn't and Apo's find a pen. Looking around the house, De suddenly remembered the charcoal stove inside. He went into the kitchen, bent down, and broke off a small piece of leftover charcoal. Holding the piece of charcoal in his hand, he gently wrote each letter on the white paper. End quote. Happy birthday, yours, De. End quote. After finishing, he looked at the simple words on the paper and smiled softly. Seeing the figures of Huyen and her mother returning to the house, De was slightly startled. He quickly walked over to the bamboo table, placing the white piece of paper with a message next to the birthday cake. De looked at the gift once more, the small cake on the table with a handwritten message in charcoal. He hoped Huyen would be happy when she saw this surprise. Not wanting Huyen to discover him, De gently stepped back, walking softly through the garden. He left the small house, leaving the birthday cake and simple wishes on the bamboo table. In the distance, the laughter of Huyen and Micah still echoed in the garden. De turned to look at the house one last time, smiled, and quietly left, giving the two of them a moment of happiness of their own. Huyen carried Micah on her back and slowly walked back into the small house. The mother and daughter chatted happily as they walked, but as they approached the bamboo table, Huyen and Appo's gaze suddenly stopped. On the table, beside a plate of donuts and a watermelon birthday cake, there was a new neatly placed birthday cake. Huyen froze, surprised as she looked at the cake in front of her. She gently set Micah down and stepped closer to check. Huyen and Appo's hands trembled slightly when she saw a white piece of paper placed next to the cake. She picked it up and recognized the familiar charcoal-written words. End quote. Happy birthday. Onda. End quote. Huyen stood still for a few seconds. She looked at the cake and then out to the yard, feeling both surprised and moved. She understood that Da had quietly returned, preparing this gift for her without wanting to disturb the mother and daughter. Without thinking further, Huyen hurried to the gate. Looking down the village road in front of the house, she called out loudly, End quote, Onda oi. End quote. Huyen stood in front of the gate, her eyes fixed on the village road but no longer seeing Da and Appo's figure. Her call was carried away by the evening wind, with no one responding. She stood silently for a long time. Huyen felt both surprised and moved when she thought about the birthday cake and the simple message Da left behind. He had quietly come, quietly prepared a gift for her, and then quietly left. Huyen gently bowed her head and went back inside the house. Her steps slowed down, but the road in front of the house had become quiet. Approaching the bamboo table, Huyen lightly touched the birthday cake. Looking at the words written with charcoal on the paper, tears involuntarily fell down her face. She smiled through her tears, holding Micah in her arms. For Huyen, this gift was not just a birthday cake but a silent gesture of care. A sincere feeling from someone who always stood by to help her and her child in the hardest times. That small house seemed warmer that day, filled with simple happiness. The sky gradually darkened, and the last rays of sunset finally disappeared behind the trees in front of the house. Huyen gently carried the birthday cake into the small room and placed it neatly on the bamboo bed. She took a few small candles, stuck them on the cake and lit them. The flickering candlelight reflected on the faces of the mother and daughter. Huyen embraced Micah in her arms, and both of them smiled as they began to sing and quote, Happy birthday and quote. The simple little house echoed with their clear, warm singing, more heartfelt than ever. After singing, Huyen and Micah closed their eyes, made wishes, and then blew out the candles. Micah happily clapped her hands, then wrapped her arms around her mother and Appo's neck and gently kissed Huyen on the cheek. Huyen held her daughter tightly, a happy smile on her face. Outside, the night gradually enveloped the garden, and the oil lamp inside the small house still shone softly. A simple birthday day came to an end, but for Huyen it was a truly special day. A day she felt the love from her daughter, and the silent care of someone always by her side. If everyone loves Huyen and Micah and Appo's mother, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a supportive comment for the two mothers to follow the next developments. Every follow and every loving comment from everyone will be a source of comfort and strength for Huyen to try to get through difficult times. Thank you all very much.